Welcome to another episode of Unscripted.
Hey!
Do we want to do introductions first? Who do we have this time? We have...
Maddie.
Well, we have Matt. Don't say Matt, because we have Maddie, too.
Well, I'll be Maddie, too.
Maddie 2.0.
Patrick.
And Danette. Okay, so this time on this episode, we're going to be talking about movie remakes, and I guess we can include TV shows that remake stuff, too.
Yeah.
So
that could work.
But
well, next to make this a lot longer than
mainly movie remakes. So does anybody have something they want to start off the discussion with? Yes, no? Matthew?
I hate movie remakes.
First sentence, I hate it.
Well...
Why?
Well, the thing is, there's certain... I'm not really sure how to say it, but there's certain movies that just don't need to be remade. Like... Carrie, for instance. It got remade 2 times, and it's really the same plot over and over. The only thing you're doing is adding new ways for the people to die and new blood to coat Carrie in, and there's really barely any difference besides the ending, which I think personally just gets worse and worse with each movie.
By the way, reminder, we're completely spoiling. There's going to be spoilers everywhere, so...
Please, if you have not seen any
we're going to talk
please.
about endings, so, yeah. Just, I wanted to put that there if you wanted to talk about the ending.
Yeah. But, the ending, in the first one, her house sinks into the ground after burning, okay? In the second one, which is like a TV movie remake, she ends up surviving, and is driving away with, like, Sue, and it was supposed to create this whole series, but it didn't kick off the ground. And then in the 2013 one, it was much like the first one, only Sue tries to stop her from burning the house down, but ends up getting kicked out as she is dragged down with the burning inferno. So, yeah, and I don't know. I just think the 70s version is... It just needed to stand alone on itself.
I think with remakes, like you were bringing up Carrie and how it's been done a bunch of times, I think what I like about remakes is if you take something that's been done, but you kind of put your own twist on it. Like, you make it worth the difference. Like, it's worth the remake because you did something that made it kind of different and kind of special and sort of your piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like seeing in remakes. But it was just like the same thing completely over. It's kind of like, well, that was boring. I knew what was going to happen that entire time. Which I think, because, like, I like the remade Spider-Man better with Andrew Garfield. I like that one better.
Spider-Man.
I think it's just done better. Like, I don't have anything against the first one. It's just, I think it's done better the second time around. And, like, they do more... Like, I've never read the comic books, but I know when I went to see it with my dad, he mentioned it was much more true to the comics and much more accurate. And if you're going to do that, then by all means, remake everything you want to remake.
Yeah. What about the Superman movies? Would those count as remakes, or are those just standalone movies?
It depends, because, like, you have a lot of stuff like that that's remade so many times that it's basically just, like,
their own.
It's another movie. Like,
yeah.
It's not really considered a remake anymore.
Like, Man of Steel, apparently it was, like, really good, but people just didn't like it.
Building Smashing Simulator
I
2013.
didn't like that movie.
Yes.
I didn't at all.
And meanwhile, you compare it to the first one, which is, you know, everyone knows it. You got Lois Lane, Clark Kent, Daily Planet. I'm going to change into Superman and just take off my glasses because that's a perfect disguise. And then, you know, the scene with him going around the earth and making time stop, and which is really weird. But superhero movies, while we're on the topic of them for remakes, to me they just get darker and blander and like more grayscale with each remake, except for the case of the Amazing Spider-Man, which you were talking about.
I can see that, definitely.
I mean, with the example of Spider-Man, it doesn't help that Spider-Man 3 left a bad taste in many people's mouths. So just by sheer comparison of the last one of the original one up to the new one, it just generally by comparison would be better.
Emo Peter, Patrick. Emo Peter.
That was such an awkward movie. It's just, I don't like it.
It was not good.
What about you? What do you think about remakes?
I think the remakes can be a really good thing if they're executed well. I know one example, I just happened to watch it recently, was the remade Karate Kid with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. While it's one of the better remakes that I've seen, because it keeps the original concept of this kid and being trained and competing in this tournament, but it throws a modern spin on it, and instead of it just being like with the new one, he goes to China, and I think it is executed really well, and how do I put it? It takes the movie and it doesn't just remake it and do the same exact thing over and over again. It adds more twists to it, and it makes a lot of references to the original one, which I really like as well.
I love when they do that.
Like, and the one scene that I remember is with Jackie Chan, and he's trying to catch the fly with the chopsticks, which is a really iconic scene with the first one. And all the fans have seen the first one, expecting, okay, he's going to do it. And he just takes up the fly swatter and hits this fly. I think it's funny that they didn't just copy that, they added their own twist to it. So I think with remakes, you have to
acknowledge that it's a remake, I think.
Yeah. You can't just copy and paste the story over and make it again with better cameras. You can't just do that. That doesn't to me make a remake. You have to have your own twist on it.
Yeah, like freaking horror fans out there, freaking Nightmare on Elm Street remake. That was like the worst remake. The only good thing that came out of it was Freddy's new burnt look. And I mean, they tried to keep the original things, like, I don't even remember the characters' names, shows you how much I care about the movie. But the blonde girl in the movie, they tried to recreate Tina's death from the first one by dragging her up on the ceiling and, slicing her open and then making her fall down on the bed with her guts spilled out. Hooray. But, I mean, he tortures her in different ways. She doesn't die, I think, until a third of the way through the movie, and the dream sequences are weird. You learn more about Freddy than you did in the first one. And I mean, yeah, the director's adding their own spin and twist to it, but it's like they're trying to still recreate the first movie and are just failing at it horribly. And it clearly shows. So would it really be worth it to try and add your own spin to it if the first one is already pretty much flawless?
I think, like, I know there are certain movies you are not supposed to remake. There are, like, there's an unspoken guideline of this movie should never be remade under any circumstances because you cannot top it. I know just recently they made a TV series of The Sound of Music. And
did they?
Yeah, they did, with Carrie Underwood.
Oh.
And you think of remakes, you're not going to think of making The Sound of Music because it's such an iconic film that you can't possibly do it better. And with those types of movies, you can't remake them because the expectations are going to be so ridiculously high that you're going to fail, even if you make a really good movie. So with remakes, they have to tread very carefully of what they are and are not remaking, because you should not touch certain films ever.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of boundaries with it. Like, again, with like remaking, like you said, they changed that one small scene in Karate Kid. Also, you have to watch what you do change, because if you do change certain things of something that's already established, people are going to be really, really upset. And it's not going to turn out well because you change something that they've loved for like years and years and might even be their favorite scene, and then you kind of take it away, and it's just not going to end well for you.
No.
At all. But, going into like TV show remakes, because I want to talk about that, because I know multiple shows that I watch are basically remakes of another story. I watch Hannibal, and then I watch the BBC Sherlock, and they do a really good job of sort of remaking a story and just adding their own sort of twist to it. Like Brian Fuller does Hannibal, and he does a really good job of taking like these beloved characters and just putting them in like this new setting and telling this different story that nobody, I guess, ever really knew they kind of wanted, and it's this big thing, and it's done really well. And then Sherlock takes the probably one of the most known characters in all of literature and puts him in a modern setting, and suddenly you can relate to everything more, I think, because it's sort of in your setting.
Yes, I agree. Especially with the Sherlock ones, they take these iconic tales like A Study in Scarlet, and they just twist it, and they make them really successful. I don't know what it is with the BBC Sherlock, that it's typically more well received than the American remake. The one with Lucy Liu.
I know when they first, Elementary was the one you're talking about. I think when they first came out with that, they changed so much of it. I think it was just sort of like a culture shock to people, because I know I was even hesitant about it. I was like, they changed the gender of John Watson, they made it Joan Watson, then they put him in New York, and it was just a really big change from what you were used to. And like, you can take Sherlock Holmes and put him in like a modern London and keep everything else, and it's just easier to take in because it's just sort of that one change. But then they did Elementary, and it was like changing everything, and suddenly people were like, okay, you can't do that, you can't do that, you're doing too much. And but I've seen afterwards, I've seen videos of it, I've seen bits of it, and it looks good. Like, they're doing a good job. I haven't watched it yet, but I think you have to also be careful with that, but it can turn out well. Like with Elementary, they apparently are well received now.
Yeah, it just falls back onto what you should and should not change with the original story or film. What about the Star Treks, for example? I know you are very passionate about Star Trek.
That goes into a big discussion, because
that's like, oh my god.
The thing with like Star Trek, though, the new Star Trek movies, is it's not exactly a remake, it's a continuation of the story, but they just made the plot line, because they made it so that it's an alternative universe. So it's literally just the same story. It's basically just saying, they did this thing, now they're in an alternate universe. Okay, let's continue the story. But they do start it over, and they do change a lot of the stuff, and there's a lot of issues with the movie, and just as a movie. But, yeah. I like watching them still, though.
They're still good films to me. I really enjoy watching them. I agree with that. While I still do enjoy the original series and even Next Generation.
Yeah.
Like, Into Darkness. I'm just gonna say
that.
I mean, I liked what they were trying to do. However, everyone, that iconic scene with Spock sacrificing himself and being sent off. You just cannot top that at all. And then you revive Captain Kirk, and it's not the same send-off. I was like, I'm not going to say I was ticked off because Captain Kirk lives, even though he's a bit of a D-bag, but...
Yeah. They make that more evident in the remakes, I think.
They do. But it's like you're taking away one of those really iconic scenes, which, I mean, it kind of goes back to what Patrick is saying. There's just some things you don't mess with. Change. So maybe they were trying not to do that because they would think they would screw it up. I don't know. But it's the third act of the movie when it really starts to fall apart.
Yeah, I agree that I like what they were trying to do. Like, I'd see what they were trying to do with switching Kirk and Spock and being like, okay, we established that they love each other this way in that one. Now we're going to establish, in case you doubted it, Kirk does love him back. And then, but I think the entire problem with Into Darkness is that it was a remake. Like, they established in the first one that it was sort of like the same story except in an alternate universe. And then the very next movie, they took a movie that's already been done and they just did the whole thing over again. And it's just like, you have this amazing idea where you put them in this alternate universe and you can do anything with that. You can change whatever you want with the story and you just remake another story. And it's like, why would you do that? You have so much potential with this thing that you've revived, and you've got this big fan base, and suddenly all these younger people are getting to Star Trek now because you've brought it up, and you just remake a thing, and it's like, I could watch that. I mean, don't make me watch it again. Come on, do something different.
And maybe it has to do with the risk factor.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to step too much out of your bubble and make something that the fan base will hate, even though you can never satisfy the fan base.
You can try, though.
You can try, but you're not going to satisfy everybody.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you do step outside of that bubble, how far are you willing to go, and is it really going to be worth it? Or are you willing to stick to a formula that people know about and that you think people would like better than trying to come up with an original idea? Because the later original Star Trek movies...
Yeah.
The reboot Star Trek is walking a very fine line because, well, they have this alternate universe where they can do anything they want. If they do something that is completely unheard of, they run the risk of being labeled as not true to the original, the basis for it. Even though it is an alternate universe, it still should reflect the original characters and the original stories in a sense.
Like,
but
you want to go finish your thought?
Oh,
Finish your
yeah.
thought. Because I'm gonna go on a rant.
But on the other end, if they try to stick to the original, they're going to run the risk of being repetitive, and it's not going to end up being well for them if they just keep remaking stories.
I think specifically with Star Trek, though, the reboot is that the point of Star Trek is to take those risks. Like, the point of it is to make a statement and keep making bigger and bigger and bigger statements. And I think they sort of discard sort of the soul of Star Trek with the reboot because they're just, I don't know, they're not doing what Star Trek was originally out there to do. They're just making a space movie. And I think they have to take those risks where they change everything. Otherwise, it's not going to be Star Trek anymore. It's just going to be another sci-fi movie, which is not what Star Trek is supposed to be. It's definitely not.
Flares.
Lens flares.
Freaking.
But they are getting a new director, so let's hope.
But is it a good director?
I don't know.
Oh.
I think it's the guy that did Avatar. Was it?
James Cameron?
No.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, I didn't know which Avatar you were referring to. Were you talking about the successful one or the really crappy one?
I don't know.
Was
Look it up.
Was
Who's
it
the new director?
Was it the remake of the Nickelodeon show?
It might be. I just remember Avatar for some reason. I might be completely wrong, but I don't know. I can't remember.
Wait. Click.
So,
Just keep talking while I...
So what else about
Okay,
remakes?
so what else about remakes? Well, you see.
You see.
Well, while we're on the subject of remakes, I don't really know if this account. How do you feel about TV show remakes?
Yeah, like we were talking about with Hannibal and
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well, you know, Cartoon Network fans out there, Powerpuff Girls remake.
Did I make one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
they're bringing it back.
They're bringing it back with like a new animation style and everything.
What's the new style?
Oh, I have a rant right now about that too.
No. Yeah, you can go
Here we
after
go.
me, buddy, because my
Take
rant.
turns.
My rant.
Matt goes on a rant. It's
boy.
gonna. What is it now?
Parents, take your children out of the room.
Keep it clean, brother.
Keep it clean.
No, I will. But the animation style these were, it's not like the, like, you know, the thick-lined style with them or everything. It's more like an anime cutout style. It's really hard to explain unless you actually see the trailer for it. But they got the old voice actors back for the characters. So, like, some people really like the new style and some people don't. I'm one of the people that don't. I don't think it matches the atmosphere of the cartoon. But I just don't know if it's really worth it if you're going to bring back a lot of the things that are original, yet change something that was one of the key aspects of it.
Yeah.
Patrick, you can do your rant.
Teen Titans.
No, we're not talking
Don't
about that.
talk about Go. Do not talk about Go.
It is the perfect example of the fact that
oh my God,
you can take this really beautiful, great series and you can royally screw it up.
Did you know that the directors for that show didn't even watch the original show?
That's evident.
That's a big mistake.
Yes.
Like, if you're gonna remake something, first and foremost, you have to like the something. You have to know the something, and that's why Sherlock works, because both Moffat and Gatiss, the starters of the show, are in love with Holmes, and you have to be a fan first and foremost before you remake anything. And that's why, like, because I want to do movies and stuff, and I would love to, like, say, do a Hulk movie with Mark Ruffalo, but I would never touch that because I don't know the Hulk, and so I'm like, just somebody else do it. I'm not going to do it, but I want it.
Like, I really would want to see a reboot of... I almost forgot what... Oh, how can I forget the name of it? Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay. Like, you don't like that show?
I never liked it.
Yeah, well, maybe you were a scared little girl.
I didn't like it.
Like, I mean, just remake it. Have new monsters, have new everything, and all that. But don't do what you did with Teen Titans Go. For the love of Christ, I will.
I mean, I feel like even would have been more successfully stuck to an animation style that was even reminiscent of the original.
Yeah, they changed everything.
They changed. Voice actors, I think, are pretty much the same thing. That was something that was overall. I think they changed a couple of them.
Going on topic, can I say, if you're gonna end a TV show, please don't leave it in the middle of an arc. Like, don't bring Tara back and let Beast Boy look at. Like, don't freaking bring back Tara and then have Beast Boy come in contact with her and then have him have to run off and save the day and blah blah blah.
She's my favorite one.
Joe Cornish.
Tara was a
director.
But like I think with like Teen Titans specifically, Teen Titans Go is more like, because you see today on cartoons they're more
hyper.
Stupid is the nice word I can think of.
The nice
word. They're no longer cartoons like what I used to watch was like Digimon, Teen Titans, and all
Pokemon,
those kind of stuff, and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, and those were like. They were like those kind of shows where it's like they have the lessons and then they have the story, but they're like work together, and it's like this is something that's going to teach your kids, and then Teen Titans Go is just sort of like
the heart of the cards.
But like I don't know, old cartoons are so much better, and I think if you just like shouldn't bring back old cartoons really if they have that kind of lesson, because somebody's going to screw it up, and just leave nice things alone and just let them be their nice things and let us be nostalgic over them, and don't touch them, please.
Please don't ever touch them.
I did. Hold on. Joe Cornish.
Joe
Cornish. The director.
The new director.
Joe
Cornish. That's what we're looking for, yeah.
If any one of you out there knows something about Joe Cornish, please send an email.
IMDb, got it.
We're gonna IMDb. Hey, look, it's Chris Pine. Sorry.
Speaking of Star Trek,
we're gonna IMDb this dude and see what else he did. And But is there anything you need to bring up while he's doing that?
Let's see. I really don't understand the point of remakes. Like this is going back to movie remakes. If you make a movie remake, but you bring it to TV. Because if the point of a movie remake is to be a movie, shouldn't you show it in the theater?
So, like, making
like
a TV movie.
The people who make the movies that are meant for TV try to make it, like, mini-sodes or something like that, which ironically last, like, an hour and 30 minutes. But even then, it's like, why can't you just make a 3-hour movie and put it in the theater and see how people like it, because there's a good chance that, you know, people are gonna not like the new way it's being done, and they'd have to wait like a week for the next part to come out, and it's like, no, I'll watch all the movies.
Did you find him?
Yeah. He's done like Attack of the Block, The Adventures of Tintin,
He
Hot
did
Fuzz.
The Adventures of Tintin. Yeah.
Joe Show.
Sorry.
Like, I'm glad we're getting a new director, but I'm always wary about that. Like, if you say you're bringing on a new writer, I'm like, okay, but are they gonna do it right?
And what is their credibility?
Yeah, stuff like that. Is there anything you want to throw in? Because we're gonna have to wrap up soon this episode.
Oh wow.
Do you want to throw in stuff about remakes? Or
No, I'm just in a bad mood now because of Teen Titans.
Oh my god.
We put everybody in a bad mood. We apologize. Is there any other things you want to yell about before we end it?
Oh, there's so many things I want to yell about, but none of them are relevant.
What's your favorite kind of do you have a favorite remake that somebody did? or they just did it right.
The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
What?
I mean, is that your thing?
Well, I mean, like, I'm sorry. This is my little kid coming out here.
Yeah,
like, I grew up with Winnie the Pooh. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
How can you hate Winnie the Pooh? If you hate Winnie the Pooh, you're a heartless bastard, and I hate you. But it was like they kept the cutesy tone.
Mm-hmm.
All the characters were the same. They still had their little misadventures, but had something new to add to it.
Yeah.
And the animation style didn't change, and it still has the deep and the 100-acre way. But I mean, that to me is a good remake, even if the movie I don't think lasted that long. I think it was like only an hour and 10 minutes. But I mean, why can't you do that? Can you only do that with kids' movies, people?
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry.
Do you have any favorites?
It's very hard to say because if we're doing remakes as a whole, I mean, there is Sherlock, but that's definitely one of the better remakes that I'm watching.
That's good.
But
TV seems to work.
It does. I will still stick to the fact that I really love the new Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that movie. I thought it was a really great remake. Yeah, I think I'll stick with that. For TV, it would be Sherlock, and movie, it would be Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah, TV is Sherlock for me.
Yeah, it's a good show. Okay, well, I think that's everything we want to talk about in this episode. So, we're done. Yay.
Yay. This has
We'll
been
have-
Maddie 2.0.
We'll have links and stuff of what we talked about in the description.
In the diddly-do.
In the diddly-do, you can click them and you can be educated, and you can say we sourced our stuff. Yay.
We're being official.
Yeah. We're being responsible for once, okay. And subscribe to the channel, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.